As Emma entered, the room went silent. Her classmates looked at her with a mix of scorn and sympathy. Emma's heart raced. Something was wrong. Emma was the brightest student at Emerald High, an all-girls school known for its rigorous standards. At 16, she was not just strikingly beautiful, but also exceptionally smart. Always at the top of her class, Emma worked tirelessly to maintain her status. Each day, she dressed in her crisp uniform and headed to school, her long black hair tied neatly in twin buns, her natural beauty shining without makeup. As Emma walked through the school gates, she turned heads. "It goes Emma, always perfect, always the best," the other students would whisper. But Emma ignored them, focusing only on her academics. In class, she was always front and center, soaking up every lecture, always first to answer questions and always right. However, Emma's beauty was distracting even to her teachers. Mr. Johnson, the math teacher, often lost his train of thought around her. Mr. Smith, the English teacher, admired Emma's elegant handwriting and insightful essays. Despite the attention, Emma remained focused on her studies. After school, while others went home or to extracurricular activities, Emma stayed behind. She'd spread her books across her desk and immerse herself in study. One evening, as the sun set, casting long shadows in the empty classroom, Emma was absorbed in her English book. She didn't notice someone enter until she heard a voice. "Emma, you're still here," called out Grace, a classmate. Surprised, Emma looked up. "Oh, hi, Grace," she replied with a smile. "Just doing some extra reading." Grace walked over, eyeing the pile of books. "If I were as pretty as you, I wouldn't bother studying so much. You could easily charm the teachers," she joked. Emma was puzzled. "What do you mean?" she asked. Grace grinned mischievously. "Haven't you noticed how Mr. Johnson and Mr. Smith look at you? You could get good grades without trying." Emma was taken aback. She'd never considered leveraging her looks. "But that wouldn't be right," she argued. Grace shrugged. "Just a thought anyway. I'm off, don't stay too late, okay?" Left alone, Emma pondered Grace's words. She had always valued hard work and integrity. But was Grace right? Could life be easier if she used her beauty? With these thoughts, Emma packed her books and walked home. The streets were quiet, the lamplights casting a soft glow. Grace's suggestion echoed in her mind, making Emma view her beauty as something more than just an attribute. At home, her parents welcomed her with pride, always supportive of her academic efforts. But that night, Emma was distracted. Instead of studying, she stood before her mirror, examining her features. Had she overlooked her own influence? Lying in bed, Emma decided to test Grace's theory. The next morning, she woke up early, hesitated at her mirror, then dressed with particular care. Little did she know, this decision would spark a chain of events that would forever alter her life. Emma was about to discover whether her beauty could indeed sway her fortunes at school. At 5:02 a.m., Emma reached for her unused makeup kit, a gift she had received for her birthday. With nervous hands, she applied a bit of foundation, blush, and lip gloss, letting her hair down to cascade in gentle waves around her shoulders. As she entered the school grounds, Emma immediately noticed more heads turning and whispers growing louder than usual. Even the teachers gave her a second glance. During Mr. Johnson's math class, Emma decided to test out Grace's theory when a surprise quiz was handed out. Panicking because she hadn't prepared, she then remembered Grace's words. As Mr. Johnson collected the papers, Emma looked up and smiled sweetly. "Mr. Johnson," she said softly, "I really hope I did well. I want to keep up my good grades in your class." Mr. Johnson appeared flustered, but reassured her, "I'm sure you did fine, Emma. You're one of my best students." The next day, Emma was shocked to find she scored perfectly on the quiz, despite knowing she hadn't answered everything correctly. Bolstered by this, she applied the same strategy with other teachers. A smile here, a kind word there, and found herself receiving high grades on tests she hadn't studied for. At first, it felt like a relief. She could finally rest instead of studying late into the night. However, as days passed, Emma relied increasingly on her looks, studying less and believing a smile or a flutter of eyelashes would suffice to maintain her top position. But she didn't see the growing resentment among her classmates. Those who once admired her now gossiped behind her back, noticing how teachers favored her and how she seemed to ease through tests without the hard work they all put in. Grace watched all this with mixed feelings of satisfaction and jealousy. She had set this plan in motion, but didn't expect Emma to excel so well at it. As Emma's grades remained high with decreased study time, Grace's envy grew. One afternoon, as Emma was leaving school, she overheard two teachers talking in an empty classroom and paused to listen. "Have you noticed how Emma has been behaving lately?" Mr. Smith asked. "Yes, it's quite a change," replied Mrs. Johnson. "She seems to be using her charms more. It's becoming a problem. The other students are starting to complain. They think we're showing favoritism," Mr. Smith noted. "Well, can you blame us?" Mrs. Johnson laughed. "She's a beautiful young woman, but you're right, we need to be careful." Emma's heart raced as she hurried away from the conversation. That night, she couldn't sleep, tossing and turning as she thought about the teacher's words. They were noticing her behavior, and it seemed they expected something in return for their favors. This was not what she had intended when she started this experiment. The next day at school, Emma felt uncomfortable under the gaze of her teachers. Every smile and compliment now seemed loaded with expectation. She realized she had opened a door she didn't know how to close. After school, Emma sought out Grace. She found her friend under a tree in the schoolyard, absorbed in her phone. "Grace, I need to talk to you," Emma said, her voice trembling slightly. Grace looked up with a slight smile. "What's up, beauty queen, enjoying your new life?" "I think I've made a mistake," Emma confessed. "The teachers, they're starting to expect more than just smiles for the favors they're doing me." "What do you mean?" Grace asked, her interest piqued. "I overheard them talking," Emma explained. "They're expecting something from me. This has gone too far." Grace was silent for a moment, then leaned in close. "Listen, Emma, you've come this far. Don't back out now." At 10:03 a.m., Emma felt the weight of Grace's suggestion. "If the teachers expect more, just go along with it," Grace insisted. Emma recoiled, appalled. "No, I can't do that," she exclaimed. Grace pressed on. "It's just a small step further. Think of the benefits you've been getting. Do you want to lose that?" "No, Grace, this is wrong. I should never have started this. I'm going to stop it now," Emma declared, walking away, unaware of the ominous look on Grace's face and the chain of events that her decision would trigger. The next morning, Emma woke up with a resolve to make things right. She tied her hair into her usual twin ponytails and went to school without makeup, ready to face the consequences and return to her diligent ways. But as soon as she entered the school, she sensed something was off. Students gathered in groups, whispering and pointing at her. Confused and worried, Emma headed to her classroom. As she entered, the room fell silent, and her classmates looked at her with disgust and pity. It was Grace who broke the silence with a loud comment. Well, if it isn't our teacher's pet, or should I say little flirt?" Emma felt as though she had been slapped. "What are you talking about?" she demanded. Grace stood up, a cruel smile on her face. "Oh, come on, Emma, everyone knows you've been cozying up to the teachers for good grades. That's low, even for you." Emma was stunned. "That's not true," she cried out, but her protests were ignored as the rumor had spread rapidly through the school. Just then, Principal Johnson appeared at the classroom door, her expression stern. "Emma, come with me to my office immediately," she commanded. As Emma followed the principal, she felt the piercing stares of everyone they passed. Tears welled up in her eyes. In the principal's office, Mrs. Johnson didn't waste words. "I've heard some very disturbing rumors about your interactions with the male teachers. This is a serious accusation." "But it's not true," Emma pleaded. "Yes, I tried to use my looks for better grades, but I never did anything inappropriate, I swear." Mrs. Johnson's expression remained unmoved. "Whether it's true or not, the damage has been done. Parents are threatening to pull their children from the school if you remain. You've become a liability, Emma. Emma felt the ground fall away beneath her. What does that mean? She asked, dreading the answer. It means, Mrs. Johnson sighed, that we have no choice but to expel you from Emerald High. The words hit Emma like a physical blow. Expelled, her perfect record, her dreams of graduating top of her class, all gone in an instant. As Emma left the principal's office, her world in shambles, she saw Grace smirking in the corridor, realizing the full extent of her friend's betrayal. The next few days were a blur of tears and arguments at home. Emma's parents were heartbroken about the expulsion. We raised you better than this, her father said, disappointed. Her mother, more pragmatic, insisted, we need to find you a new school. You can't let this setback ruin your future. After days of searching, Emma's parents managed to enroll her in public high school, a stark contrast to the prestigious Emerald High. Standing at the gates on her first day, Emma felt like a different person. The confident, top-of-the-class Emma was gone, replaced by someone who felt lost and alone. But as she stepped onto the school grounds, she made a silent vow to herself. This was her second chance to prove that she was more than just a pretty face, a chance to show the world and herself that she could succeed on her own merits. Unbeknownst to Emma, her journey at public high school would bring its own challenges and revelations. This was just the beginning of her story.